for people who think that this is a bad economy right now, I'm not saying a year ago when it was bad.
Sure.
I'm saying for those of you who are saying it's a bad economy right now, what would a good economy actually look like? So, Mike, if we're talking about places that we can see improvement, and I'm not talking about I'm not talking about how we feel about a certain business doing well or not doing well.
Yeah, you're talking about overall, how could you make this economy better?
Overall, when you want to talk about where to improve this economy today, where is it? What are the places that we can still see room for improvement? Because, quite honestly, there's a lot right now that is really good.
Yeah.
The two places I can think of when we talk about, hey, how do you make this, if you don't think this is a good economy, where can you point to and say this needs to get better? Core inflation still running hot.
Yep.
But again, most of that's from readings 6+ months ago.
Sure.
So again, a lot of that recently is starting to look better. And if you want to make a case that incomes are still not really rewarding people for the value of the work that they're doing in a lot of cases, I can buy that somewhat, but real incomes are actually increasing in the last 6 months, so I really don't even buy that as much as I would have before, especially because here's the fascinating thing. When you look at the tax withholding data that's actually that's publicly available, that comes out, based on, again, payroll withholding and estimated taxes and this and that, one of the things that's actually fascinating right now is that the tax base is broadening significantly in terms of the amount of withholding that's happening amongst the demographic that's been hurt the last 40 years, which is basically 20th, 40th, 60th percentile, lower half of the population. You're actually seeing significantly improved withholdings that are happening there. And what you're seeing, on the other hand,
which is where the biggest portion of the wage gains came to early on in the pandemic.
And the interesting thing is top 10%, when you're looking at the withholdings that are happening there and the estimated taxes that get filed, they're actually shrinking a little bit.
Oh, the rich session.
So you actually have a case right now where some of the income inequality that's developed in the last, 40 years or so, I don't want to say reversing because it's like a 1-year trend, maybe even a 6-month trend. But there's something happening there where there's a shift that's occurring, at least in the short term here.
The answer to your question from before, which is why, I know you're asking how could you make this economy better, and I don't have many other thoughts than you do because honestly things do look in this exact moment they look pretty good. I think you could maybe point to overall debt servicing costs, but those aren't historically high levels,
no.
Right? I mean, I think they're overall uncomfortably high, but they have been for a long time. So I don't look at that as somewhere you'll be able to readily improve. But quite honestly, my read on it is that we have become so polarized, especially on the political front, that there's always one half of the population whose party is not in power that feels that the economy sucks. It's in my mind, that seems to be shaping our view on everything at any given moment
the
in
problem
time,
is
which is
that
really problematic.
It's really potentially hurtful to individuals who are trying to manage their finances because
Sure.
if you're that skewed by it, that in 2017 or 2018 you can't look at the Trump economy and say, man, this thing is cranking. What were you looking at in 2017, 2018, or 2019 where you're like, oh, this is bad? That's just wrong. That economy was absolutely on fire. Likewise, if you can't look at the economy in 2023 and say, man, this thing is cranking, you're not really being honest with yourself.
Sure.
In either case, you're looking at it and you're making a decision where you're saying, well, gee, I don't like the person who's in power, and so I'm going to say this is bad. Well, look, in 2017 and 2019, you missed out on some huge gains in markets if you said, I just don't like Trump, and so I'm going to pass on it. That was a dumb move. 2018 was basically flat for the year, but again, flat's not awful. And likewise, if you look at this year and say, oh, I don't like Biden, and so this must be a bad economy. No, that's just as ludicrous as looking at the Trump economy and saying it was a bad one.
Yes.
If you want to point to last year and say, man, it was bad, yep, you're right. Again, take an objective view on this stuff. The economy can suck last year, but then be bouncing back and in a pretty darn good spot this year.